"The deed was signed yesterday," Rachel said, holding the keys up high like a trophy. "This house is mine now." Her voice cut through the living room with that confidence that only people who think they've already won have. My son Edward was by her side, a tape measure in his hands, measuring the space where they would put their new furniture for my house, for the house I bought with my own 2 hands in 1997 when I sold my parents' ranch and started from scratch in this city I didn't know. But they didn't know that, or they pretended not to know. Rachel walked through the living room like she was breaking in new expensive shoes. She touched the walls, the curtains. She moved the picture frames with 2 fingers, as if the dust of my life bothered her. "The gray sofa I saw at the store will go here," she said, "and over there a modern floor lamp. This all has to change, Edward. This looks like something from the 80s. She glanced at me, with that thin smile she used when she wanted to hurt me without raising her voice. "You should start packing your things, Olivia. The movers are coming on Monday. We'll find you something small, don't worry. Something more your age." Edward said nothing. He just measured. He just nodded. He just avoided my eyes. My son. The boy I carried in my arms up these very stairs when he had a fever. The one who cried in my lap when his father died. Now he held a tape measure and measured the space where I no longer fit. I swallowed hard. I wasn't going to cry in front of her. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Rachel took out her phone and started taking pictures. "For the interior designer," she explained, "we want this to be flawless. A house like this deserves a complete renovation." She stopped in front of the big window, the one overlooking the park, the one I've cleaned every Saturday for 28 years. "I'm going to put big plants here," she said, "the kind you see in magazines. And maybe change the windows. These are very old." I felt a lump in my throat, but I didn't move from my chair. I was sitting in the armchair where my husband read the newspaper every morning, where my daughter Christine did her homework before she left to study abroad, where I sewed, where I cried, where I prayed. Rachel wanted to erase it all. She wanted to turn my history into a catalog photo. Edward rolled up the tape measure and walked over to his wife. "Do you think we should change the floor too?" he asked. Rachel nodded. "Obviously, this wood floor is all scratched. We're going to put in white porcelain tile. Modern, clean." I stared at the scratches on the floor. Everyone had a story. That one, from when Edward dragged his new bicycle through the house. That other one, from when the pot of Christmas stew fell. Rachel wanted to cover my memories with white porcelain. "And you? Olivia, do you have family you can stay with?" Rachel asked without looking at me. "Because we really don't want this to be awkward for anyone. Edward and I need our space. We're a young family. We need privacy." A young family. As if I were an old piece of furniture, cluttering up her modern decoration, as if being 65 made me invisible, expendable. Edward finally looked at me. "Mom, this is for the best. The house is too big for you alone. You're always complaining about the stairs. And Rachel is right, we need our space. Besides, it's all settled. The deed is signed. It's legal." His voice sounded rehearsed, like he had repeated those words in the mirror until they sounded convincing. But I knew my son. I knew that way he blinked when he was lying, that almost invisible tremor in his jaw. Rachel went back to walking through the room, marking spots for furniture with masking tape. Was she talking to herself? Or maybe to Edward? I don't know. I stopped listening to her, my eyes fixed on the shelf where I kept the photos. My wedding, Edward's first day of school, Christine's graduation, my husband and I in front of the ranch, the day we sold it. All those photos were going to end up in a box, in a small room, somewhere Rachel considered appropriate for me. Then the doorbell rang. A long, insistent sound. Rachel frowned. "Who is it now?" she muttered, annoyed. Edward went to the door. I didn't move. I just waited. Something inside me, something small but firm, told me that doorbell was no accident, that something was about to change. I didn't know what, but I felt it, like when the air gets heavy before a storm. Edward opened the door, and I saw Mr. Morris, the building manager, tall, with his leather briefcase under his arm, with that seriousness he always had. "Good afternoon," he said in a firm voice. "I'm looking for Mrs. Rachel Salazar." Rachel walked over, still holding her phone. With that smile she used to impress people. "Yes, that's me. Is there a problem with the building?" Morris came in without smiling. He took a folder from his briefcase. "I have to inform you of something urgent, ma'am." "About the property?" Rachel laughed, a sharp, nervous sound. "I think there's a mistake, sir. I bought this property. I have the deed. Everything is in order." Morris opened the folder and took out several documents. He placed them on the coffee table. The table I had varnished 3 times in 28 years. "That is precisely the reason for my visit," he said. "The deed you have is fraudulent." The silence was immediate, absolute, as if someone had muted the world. Rachel's tape measure fell to the floor with a dry clatter. Edward froze by the door. Morris looked at me, and in his eyes I saw something I didn't expect: respect. "Mrs. Olivia," he continued, "you are the legitimate owner of this property since 1997. I have all the documents right here to prove it. Original deed, tax payments, utilities in your name, everything." Rachel turned pale. "That's impossible," she whispered. "I paid. I signed. I have papers." Morris shook his head. "You were the victim of a scam, ma'am. The person who sold you this house had no right to it. We've already filed a report with the authorities. But the legal owner, without any doubt, is Mrs. Olivia Morales." I looked at my son. His eyes were filled with something I couldn't decipher: fear, guilt, confusion. Rachel dropped her phone. Her hands were shaking. "But we paid $120,000, she yelled. $120,000. It can't be a scam." Morris closed his briefcase. "I'm very sorry for your situation. But that doesn't change the legal reality. This house belongs to Mrs. Olivia. And if you need more proof, the building management has all the records since she bought the apartment 28 years ago." I just sat there, still, looking at the keys Rachel still held in her trembling hand, keys that wouldn't open anything that belonged to her. Fake keys, like her smile, like her promises, like that world she had built in my living room in less than an hour. Rachel dropped the keys on the table. The sound of metal on wood echoed in the tense silence of the room. "But this makes no sense," she repeated, her voice now high-pitched, almost hysterical. "I have documents. I have proof. I signed before a notary. Edward, say something." My son ran a hand over his face. He looked like a man waking up from a nightmare. "Mom," he whispered, "you knew. You knew this was going to happen." I didn't answer right away. Morris was looking at me, waiting. Rachel was breathing fast, as if she couldn't get enough air. Edward was pale, his hands shaking. I just stayed there in my armchair, the same one I sat in the first night I came to this house, the first night after selling the ranch, the first night without my parents, without my land, with nothing but a new deed and the hope of starting over. 28 years ago. I remember the smell of fresh paint. I remember the boxes stacked in the hallway. I remember my husband carrying Edward, who was just 7, and telling him, "Look, son, this is our home. Your mom bought it with her own hard work." Never forget that. Edward had run through the empty rooms, screaming with excitement. "This is my house," he would shout. "My house. Now." That same boy was looking at me like I was a stranger. "Mom," he repeated louder this time, "you knew Rachel was being scammed, and you didn't say anything." I looked up. I looked him straight in the eyes. "I knew," I said calmly, "that no one can sell what isn't theirs. And this house is mine. It always was." Rachel exploded. "You knew, and you let us spend $120,000. You are a cruel old woman, a manipulator." "Edward, your mother set a trap for us." Morris raised his hand, interrupting her. "Ma'am, control yourself. Mrs. Olivia has no responsibility for your bad business deal. You didn't verify the property. You didn't investigate. You didn't check with the building management. We have all the records. If you had just asked, we would have told you the truth from day one." Edward sank into a chair. He buried his head in his hands. Rachel started pacing like a caged animal. "This is absurd," she kept saying. "Absurd. I'm going to sue. I'm going to get my money back. Someone is going to pay for this." Morris took another paper from his briefcase. "We've already filed a report with the district attorney," he informed them. "The person who sold you this property used false documents. He's a known criminal. He has at least 6 similar cases. You are just one more victim." Rachel collapsed onto the sofa she wanted to replace, the sofa where my husband died 5 years ago while taking a nap. I was in the kitchen making coffee. When I came back, he wasn't breathing. I called his name. I shook him. I cried on his chest until the paramedics arrived. That sofa held his shape, his scent, his absence, and Rachel had planned to throw it out like trash. "Edward," Rachel said in a broken voice, "we had everything planned. We were going to live here. We were going to start our family here. And your mother knew. She knew, and she didn't say a word." My son lifted his head. His eyes were red. "Mom, why didn't you stop us? Why did you let it get this far?" I got up from the armchair, slowly. My knees creaked. 65 years is a heavy weight. I walked to the window where Rachel wanted to put her magazine plants. I looked out at the park, the same trees I've seen every morning for 28 years, the same benches where Edward played as a child, the same fountain where my husband kissed me the day we moved in. "Because I needed you to see Edward," I said without turning around. "I needed you to see who the woman you married really is. I needed you to understand what you have done to me for these past 3 years." The silence behind me was dense, heavy. I turned around. I looked at both of them. 3 years, I repeated. 3 years since you got married. 3 years in which I became the maid in my own house. The nuisance. The old woman who gets in the way. Rachel opened her mouth to speak, but I raised my hand. "No," I said. "Now the owner of this house is speaking. The one who paid for every brick. The one who cleaned every corner. The one who cried in every room." Morris took a step back, giving me space. Edward stared at me with wide eyes, as if he didn't recognize me. "I remember the day you brought Rachel to meet me," I continued. "She showed up in a green dress, high heels, expensive perfume. She shook my hand like she was touching something dirty. I remember she asked why I still lived here, why I hadn't moved into a nursing home. You laughed, Edward. You said it was a joke, but I saw her eyes, and I knew." "Mom, that's not fair," Edward started. "Not fair," I yelled. "What's not fair is that you asked me to cook for your dinner parties, while Rachel took credit for cooking everything. What's not fair is that you sent me to bed early when your friends came over, because my presence made them uncomfortable. What's not fair is that you forgot my birthday 3 years in a row, but you celebrated hers with a mariachi band and a 3-tiered cake." Edward turned pale. Rachel stared at the floor. Morris awkwardly checked his documents. I could feel my heart pounding in my ears. 28 years of silence were breaking. 28 years of swallowing humiliation, of pretending it didn't hurt, of being invisible in my own home. "And today," I continued, "today you came here with a fake deed, with keys that open nothing, with plans to erase me, to turn my life into modern decor, into white porcelain." I walked to the table where Morris had left the documents. I touched them. Thick paper. Official. Real. "I bought this house with the money from my parents' ranch," I said. $180,000. Everything they had, everything they left me. I sold it to come to this city, to give my family a better life. Your father, you, Christine." Edward had tears in his eyes. "Mom, I didn't know. I didn't know you paid for the house. I thought Rachel told me Dad had bought it, that you only lived here because Dad let you." I looked at Rachel. She avoided my gaze. "Of course," I said. "Of course she told you that. Because erasing women is easier than respecting them." Morris cleared his throat. "Mrs. Olivia, I need you to sign these documents. They are to ratify your ownership and to confirm that you never authorized any sale." I took the pen he offered. I signed. My hand did not tremble, not once. Rachel shot up from the sofa, as if pulled by a spring. "This can't be happening," she said. Her voice was now a desperate shriek. "Edward, do something, call someone. Call the lawyer. This has to be illegal. There has to be something we can do." My son fumbled for his phone with shaking hands, but Morris shook his head. "You can call whoever you want, ma'am. The facts are not going to change. This property is registered in Olivia Morales' name since 1997. She is current on all her payments, taxes, utilities, maintenance. Everything. There is absolutely nothing you can do legally." Rachel pointed a finger at me, accusing. "You knew. You knew from the beginning that man was a scammer. And you let us sign. You let us pay. That's complicity. That's fraud. I'm going to sue you. I'm going to ruin you." I crossed my arms. "Go ahead," I said calmly. "Sue me for owning my own house. Sue me for not stopping your own greed. Sue me for existing in the space you wanted to steal." Edward dropped his phone. "Mom, how can you be so cold? We just lost $120,000. We're ruined. And you're just standing there like it's nothing." I felt something break inside me, something that had been cracking for 3 years, and finally shattered. "Cold," I repeated. "You call me cold." I walked toward him slowly. Edward took a step back. "Cold," I said again louder. "Cold is the woman who raised you alone after your father died. Cold is the woman who sold her mother's jewelry to pay for your college. Cold is the woman who worked double shifts at the hospital so you wouldn't have to take out loans. Cold is the woman who cried alone in her room so you wouldn't see her weak." My voice cracked on the last word, but I didn't stop. Edward looked at me as if he was seeing me for the first time. "I gave you everything," I continued. "Everything. And when you married her, when you brought her here to live, I accepted it. I smiled. I said, 'Welcome,' because I thought my son had chosen well, that he had found a partner, a family. But what you found was a woman who only saw this house. She only saw what she could take." "That's not true," Rachel screamed. "I love Edward. I married him for love. Not for his house, not for his money." I laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Then why, on the very day you got back from your honeymoon, did you ask me when I was moving out? Why did you suggest I look for a nursing home? Why did you say a woman my age shouldn't be living with a young couple?" Rachel opened her mouth, but no words came out. Edward sat down again. He looked smaller, younger. "Mom," he whispered, "I didn't know Rachel said that to you." "Of course you didn't know," I answered, "because you never asked. You never asked me how I was, if I was comfortable, if I needed anything. You just assumed I was fine, that I would always be fine, because mothers are always fine, right? Mothers don't have feelings. They don't have dignity. They're just there, waiting to be useful." Morris put his documents away. "Mrs. Olivia, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to leave. I've done my duty in informing you of the situation. If you need anything else, I'll be in the management office. And if they," he pointed at Rachel and Edward, "try to cause you any problems, don't hesitate to call me. We have 24-hour security in the building." I nodded. "Thank you. Morris, thank you for being honest. For not lying to me. For treating me like what I am, the owner of my home." When the door closed behind Morris, the silence returned. But it was different now. It was the silence before an explosion. Rachel was breathing hard, her fists clenched. Edward had his head down, staring at the floor he wanted to replace with white porcelain. I stood before them, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Power, control, justice. Rachel was the first to speak. Her voice was pure venom. "You are a bitter old woman," she said, "a resentful woman who can't stand to see her son happy. That's why you did this. That's why you set this trap for us. Because you can't stand that Edward loves me more than he loves you." I stepped toward her, so close I could see the smudged mascara under her eyes. "A trap," I said slowly. "You call it a trap that I own my house. You call it a trap that I existed before you. That this life was mine, before you showed up with your high heels and your perfume and your plans to erase me." Edward got up, putting himself between us. "Mom, please." Rachel calmed down. "This has gotten out of control. We have to think clearly. We have to find the man who scammed us. We have to get our money back." I laughed again. "Get your money back," I said. "That's your only problem now, isn't it? Not that you humiliated your mother. Not that you tried to steal her home. Only that you lost money." "It's not her home," Rachel screamed. "It's just a house, just walls and windows. But we are her family, her son, her blood. And you chose the walls, you chose the bricks, you chose pride." I felt tears burning my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. "I didn't choose anything," I said. "You chose. You chose when you decided I was in the way, when you planned to kick me out, when you measured my living room for your furniture, when you talked about me as if I wasn't even here, as if I didn't matter." Edward ran his hands through his hair. "Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know you felt that way. I didn't know Rachel had treated you badly. I thought everything was fine, that we were a happy family." "A happy family," I repeated. "In a happy family, Edward, you don't forget birthdays. You don't exclude your grandmother from family photos. You don't tell your mother to go to bed early because she incommodes the guests. You don't ask her to cook and then take the credit. You don't plan to steal her home." Rachel wiped her tears away angrily. "I never wanted to steal anything. We just wanted our own house, our own space. It's normal. It's what young couples do." I stared at her. "If you wanted your own space, you could have bought one. With your own money, somewhere else. But no, you wanted this place, my place. Because it was easier. Because you thought I wouldn't say anything. That I would just pack my things and disappear, like a good obedient old woman." Just then, the doorbell rang again. The three of us froze. Edward went to open it. It was Isabel, my neighbor from upstairs. She was holding a tray covered in aluminum foil. "Olivia, I called earlier, but you didn't answer. I brought you some tamales. I know today is a hard day for you." She looked at Rachel and Edward. "Oh, you have visitors. I'm sorry." "No, Isabel, come in," I said. "They were just leaving." Isabel came in, left the tray in the kitchen. She stood there taking in the scene. The tape measure on the floor, the documents on the table, Rachel's tears, Edward's pale face. Isabel was 70. She had lived in the building since it was built. She knew everything. She saw everything. "Olivia," she asked softly, "are you okay? Did something happen?" I nodded. "Yes, Isabel, something happened. The truth happened." Isabel looked at Rachel with a hard expression. "Ah, I see. They already told you the deed was fake, right?" Rachel and Edward looked at her stunned. "You knew?" Edward asked. Isabel nodded. "The whole building knew, kid. Morris warned us 2 weeks ago that someone was trying to sell properties that didn't belong to them. Your mother told us not to say anything. She said she wanted to see how far you two would go. And now we see." Edward looked at me, his face full of disbelief. "You told the neighbors not to talk. You set this whole thing up." "Set up," I said, "is a big word. I just didn't stop your fall. There's a big difference." Isabel put her purse on the kitchen table and crossed her arms. "Olivia didn't set up anything," she said firmly. "She just protected herself. When Morris told us there was a scammer selling fake deeds, your mother asked us that if anyone asked about her or this apartment, we should tell the truth. Nothing more, just the truth. Rachel pointed a shaky finger at her. But nobody told us anything. Nobody warned us. Isabel looked at her coldly. Because nobody asked us, ma'am. You never came to the management office. You never verified with the building manager. You never knocked on a single door to confirm who the real owner was. You just believed a stranger. And paid $120,000 without investigating anything. Edward sank into a chair. He put his head in his hands. $120,000, he mumbled. All my savings, everything. Isabel clicked her tongue. Well, you should have asked first, kid. I've known your mother since she moved into this building. 28 years. I saw her show up with her boxes, a widow with 2 young children. I saw her work double shifts at the hospital. I saw her cry when your father died. I saw her raise you. And now you come here with this woman and try to kick her out of her own house. What kind of son does that? Rachel stood up. That's enough. We're not going to stand here and be judged by some nosy old woman. Edward, let's go. We're going to talk to a lawyer. This isn't over, Isabel laughed. Go talk to 1,000 lawyers if you want. Olivia's documents are legal. Yours is garbage. End of story. Rachel grabbed her purse in a fury and stormed toward the door. Edward got up slowly, looking at me. Mom, he whispered, I need time to process this. To understand. I don't know what to say to you right now. You don't have to say anything, I replied. You already said everything with your actions. With your silence. With your complicity. Edward opened his mouth as if to respond, but Rachel yanked him by the arm. Let's go, she ordered. They left. The door slammed shut. The silence that remained was different, no longer tense, just empty. Isabel hugged me. Oh, Olivia, I'm so sorry. I know he's your son. I know it hurts. I rested my head on her shoulder. Isabel smelled like cinnamon and lavender soap. She smelled like kindness, like truth. It hurts, I admitted. It hurts so much. But I couldn't keep letting them walk all over me. I couldn't keep being invisible in my own home. Isabel held me tighter. You did the right thing. Sometimes love is also about setting boundaries. It's also about saying enough. We sat on the sofa. Isabel poured coffee from my coffee pot, the one I bought in 1998. 2 cups, no sugar for me, 2 spoons for her, 28 years of being neighbors. You learn those things. Olivia, she said after a long silence, what are you going to do now? I shrugged. I don't know. I just know that this house is mine, that I'm not leaving, that I'm not going to let anyone take what's mine. Isabel nodded. Good, because this house has your history in every corner, and nobody has the right to erase it. We drank our coffee in silence. I could hear the clock on the wall, the clock my husband had hung on the very first day, the clock that had marked every second of our lives here, every joy, every sorrow, every moment. The next morning, I got a call. It was Elvira, the building's lawyer. Mrs. Olivia, I need you to come to my office. There are some documents you need to sign, and there's something else you need to know. I arrived at 10 in the morning. Elvira's office was full of files. I sat across from her desk. She pushed a folder toward me. Mrs. Olivia, we investigated your daughter-in-law's case further. The man who sold them the fake deed is named Leonardo Vargas. He has a record. He has scammed at least 15 families in the last 2 years. Always the same method. He forges deeds for properties that are occupied by elderly people. He tells naive buyers that the original owners are about to move, or that they're already dead. I felt a chill. So Rachel isn't the only victim. Elvira shook her head. No, but your case is different because you are here. You're alive. You have all your documents in order. In the other cases, some properties really did belong to deceased people, and the families didn't have clear paperwork. There were long lawsuits, evictions. It was terrible. I opened the folder. There were photos of Leonardo Vargas, a man in his 40s, well-dressed, kind smile, the kind of person you would trust. Elvira continued, The police already have a warrant for his arrest, but he fled. He's probably out of the country. The money your daughter-in-law paid is likely gone. It was transferred to overseas accounts. Lost. I closed the folder. So Rachel lost everything. Elvira nodded. I'm afraid so. Legally. You have no responsibility. You were not obligated to warn them. You did not participate in the fraud. Your only fault, if you can even call it that, was not stopping something that wasn't your responsibility to stop. I left Elvira's office with a weight in my chest. $120,000. All of my son's savings. Lost. Because of greed. Because of carelessness. Because of wanting something that didn't belong to them. But also because of my silence. Because of my decision not to warn them. To let them fall. I walked through the park in front of the building. The same trees, the same benches. I sat where I used to sit with my husband. I closed my eyes. I did the right thing, I wondered aloud. One part of me said yes. Another part whispered doubts. That night, while I was making dinner, I found something. I was putting away some plates when I saw a box in the back of the cabinet. A wooden box I hadn't opened in years. I took it down carefully. Inside were letters. Letters from my husband. He had written them during the months before he died, when he knew the cancer was winning, when he knew he would be leaving me alone. I picked one at random. It was dated 3 months before his death. My dearest Olivia, the letter said in his slanted handwriting. If you're reading this, it's because I'm not with you anymore. Forgive me for leaving you. Forgive me for not being able to stay with you longer. But I need you to know something important. This house is your fortress. You bought it. You paid for it. With your parents' money, with your sacrifice. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. Never let them take it from you. And if, someday, our children forget what you did for them, remind them. Not with anger, but with truth. The truth always wins, my love, always. Tears fell onto the paper, staining the old ink. My husband knew. He knew that someday I would need to remember. I would need strength. I kept reading. Olivia. The letter continued. I know you are strong. Stronger than you even know. You raised our children practically alone while I was sick. You worked until you were exhausted. You never complained. That strength doesn't leave you just because I'm gone. It's still there. Use it. Protect yourself. Because people forget. Even children forget. Not out of malice, but out of distraction. Out of selfishness. Your job is to remind them who you are. Not with sweet words, but with clear boundaries. I folded the letter carefully. My husband had left me more than just memories. He had left me permission to be strong. To defend myself, to not disappear. I opened another letter. This one was shorter. Olivia, if anyone tries to take this house from you, fight. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter if it's family. The house isn't just bricks. It's your dignity. It's your history. It's the proof that you existed, that you worked, that you loved. Don't give it up. Ever. I put the letters back in the box. I placed it on my nightstand, where I could see it every morning, every night, where it would remind me why I had done what I did, why I had let Edward and Rachel fall into the trap, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity, out of survival, out of justice. The next day, Edward showed up, alone. He rang the doorbell at noon. I opened the door and found him looking haggard, deep dark circles under his eyes, unshaven, wrinkled clothes. "Mom," he said in a hoarse voice, "can I come in?" I stepped aside. "I'm not staying long. I need to talk to you." I let him in. I didn't offer coffee. I didn't offer a seat. I just waited, standing in the middle of the living room. Edward walked to the window, the same window where Rachel had planned to put her magazine plants. "Rachel left," he said without looking at me. "She went to her mother's house. She says she can't look at me right now. She says this is all my fault for not verifying the property, for trusting the seller, for not asking you." I waited. I said nothing. Edward turned to me. "You were right, Mom, about everything. Rachel only wanted the house. She never respected you. And I was a coward, an idiot, a bad son." His voice broke. Edward sank onto the sofa, the same sofa where his father had died, where I had cried, where we had been a family before Rachel came to redecorate everything. "I lost everything, Mom," he whispered. "Everything. $120,000. My savings. My marriage. Your respect. Everything." I stood there, my arms crossed. "You didn't lose my respect, Edward. You gave it away. There's a difference." He looked up. His eyes were red, swollen. He had the look of a lost child, the child he had been, the child I had raised alone after his father got sick. "Mom, I don't know how all this happened," he said. "I don't know at what point I stopped seeing you, stopped hearing you." Rachel had a way of talking, of convincing me. She said you were old-fashioned, that you didn't understand modern relationships, that mothers-in-law should give young couples space. And I believed her. God, I believed all of it. I sat down across from him, but I kept my distance. "Modern relationships," I repeated. "Is that what they call disrespect now? Ungratefulness? Forgetting where you come from and who raised you?" Edward ran his hands over his face. "I remember, Mom. I remember everything. How you worked double shifts at the hospital. How you'd come home so tired you could barely walk, but you still made dinner. How you sold Grandma's jewelry to pay for my college. How you cried when I graduated. I remember all of it. But Rachel had this way of making all of that seem insignificant, like it was just your obligation, like you didn't have to be thanked for doing what mothers do." "What mothers do," I said slowly. "Mothers have no obligation to sacrifice everything, Edward. That was my decision, my love, my choice. But love has to be reciprocal. There has to be respect. And you let her treat me like a servant, like a burden, like something to be removed." Edward nodded, his head bowed. I know, and I hate myself for it. Every time Rachel spoke badly to you, I knew it was wrong. But I didn't say anything, because I wanted peace. I wanted my marriage to work, because I was a coward." A long silence filled the room. I could hear the traffic on the street, the distant bark of a dog, the ticking of the clock that Edward's father had hung so many years ago. "Edward," I said finally, "when was the last time you asked me how I was? Not out of politeness, for real. When was the last time you just sat with me, and we just talked, like we used to?" He looked at me, his eyes full of tears. "I don't know, Mom. I don't remember. And that's what's killing me." I reached out, touching the shelf where the family photos were. My wedding photo, Edward as a baby, Christine at her graduation, all of us together, before the cancer came, before death visited us, before Rachel ever existed in our lives. "This house has a memory, Edward," I said. "Every corner, every wall. And I have a memory too. I can't forget how you treated me, how you planned to kick me out, how you measured my living room for your furniture while I was sitting right there, invisible." Edward stood up and walked toward me. "Mom, I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know what we did was unforgivable. But I need you to know, I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted to make you feel invisible. I was just blind. I was an idiot in love, who couldn't see past what his wife was telling him." I stopped him with a gesture. "Love doesn't make you blind, Edward. Love makes you see better. What you had, that wasn't love. It was obsession. It was fear of being alone. It was weakness." His shoulders shook. He started to cry, a deep, racking sob from his chest, like when he was a boy and he fell, like when his father died, and he cried in my arms for hours. "Mom, forgive me," he begged between sobs. "Please. I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to earn back your trust. But I'll do anything, whatever you ask. Just don't turn your back on me. Don't abandon me." I felt my own heart breaking, because no matter how angry I was, no matter how hurt, he was still my son. He was still the baby I had carried, the boy I had protected, the man I had raised alone. But I also knew that forgiveness couldn't come easily, that if I forgave him now, with no consequences, no lesson learned, I would only be teaching him that he could hurt me, and then come back when it was convenient. "Edward," I said in a firm voice, "I need time. I need space. I need to process everything that happened. You can't just come here, cry, and expect everything to go back to the way it was. Because it's not going to be like it was. Ever. Something broke, and broken things are never the same, even if you glue them back together." Edward wiped his tears with the back of his hand. "I understand," he whispered. "I understand. I just needed you to know that I'm sorry, that I regret it, that I would give anything to go back in time and do things differently." He walked to the door slowly, as if every step hurt him. Before he left, he turned around one last time. "Mom, the house, it's full of your memories, of Dad, of us. Rachel was right about one thing. It's not just a house, it's your life. And I tried to take it from you. I don't know if you'll ever be able to forgive me for that." He left. The door closed softly. I stood in the middle of the living room, surrounded by silence and memory. I walked to my room. I opened the nightstand drawer. I took out the box with my husband's letters. I read one after another. They all said the same thing, in different ways. Be strong. Protect yourself. Don't let them erase you. You are more than they see. You are everything. I couldn't sleep that night. I just stared at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened, about how I'd gotten to this point, about how my own family had tried to displace me, about how I'd had to defend myself from my own son. I thought about Christine, my daughter who lived in Europe, who called once a month, who sent postcards, who had her own life. Christine didn't know about any of this, and I was glad, because Christine had always respected me. She had always valued me. She had always seen me. At 3 a.m, I got up. I went to the kitchen. I made chamomile tea. I sat by the window. The city was asleep. The lights twinkled in the distance. I thought about all the nights I had spent just like this, alone, awake, thinking, worrying, planning, surviving. 65 years, a whole life, and I still had to fight for my place in the world. The next day, I called Elvira the lawyer. "I need to change my will," I told her. "I need to make sure this house is protected, that no one can take it from me, that when I die, it goes to who I decide, not to who assumes it belongs to them." Elvira scheduled me for that afternoon. We sat in her office. She took out forms, legal documents. "Mrs. Olivia," she asked, "is it clear who you want to leave the property to?" I nodded. "To my daughter Christine. And if she doesn't want it, I want it to be sold, and the money donated to a shelter for elderly women, victims of family abuse." Elvira raised her eyebrows. "That's a strong decision," she said. "Are you sure?" "Completely sure," I replied. "My son had his chance. He had years of chances. And he chose a woman who only saw this house as a prize. He chose silence over my dignity. Now, I choose." I signed the documents, every page, every line, with a steady hand, without a doubt. Elvira put them in a manila envelope. "It's registered," she said. "No one can change this without your authorization. And if anything happens to you, the will is executed automatically." I left the office feeling something strange, something like peace, but also sadness. Because protecting myself meant pulling away. It meant putting up walls where there used to be doors. It meant accepting that my family was not what I thought it was. That love wasn't unconditional, that even children could forget, could betray, could hurt. 3 weeks passed. Edward called every 2 days. I didn't answer. I let the calls go to voicemail. I listened to his messages later. "Mom, please. Mom, I need to talk to you. Mom, I miss you. Mom, forgive me." His voice, more broken each time, more desperate, but I wasn't ready. Not yet. Isabel came up to visit me every afternoon. She brought food. She brought company. She brought normalcy. "Olivia," she would tell me, "I know it hurts, but you did the right thing. Children need to learn that mothers have limits too, that they can also say, 'Enough.'" One day, while we were drinking coffee, she asked me something no one else had dared to ask. "Olivia, do you think Edward really changed? Or is he just scared because he lost everything?" I thought about it for a long time. "I don't know, Isabel," I admitted finally. "I don't know if his regret is real or if it's just fear." Fear of being alone. Fear of facing his mistakes. Isabel nodded. "Time will tell. Actions speak louder than words. If he's really changed, you'll see it. If not, you'll see that too. And then you'll know what to do." I drank my coffee slowly. I knew she was right. That time was the only true judge. 2 months after everything happened, something changed in me. It wasn't sudden. It was gradual, like the sunrise that comes slowly without announcement. I woke up one morning and knew I couldn't keep living in bitterness, that defending my house had been necessary, but staying trapped in the pain was not. My husband always said that life was too short to waste on resentment, and he was right. I sat at the kitchen table with an old notebook. I started to write. I didn't know what. I just let the words flow. I wrote about the house, about what it meant to me, about why I had fought so hard for it, and as I wrote, something became clear in my mind. This house wasn't just walls and memories. It was a symbol that women like me exist. We work, we buy, we build, and we deserve respect. I called Isabel that afternoon. "I need your help," I told her. "I want to do something with this house, something that matters." Isabel arrived in 10 minutes with her own notebook and bright eyes. "Tell me," she said, sitting across from me. I took a deep breath. "I want to turn part of this house into a community space. For elderly women. For the ones who have been displaced by their families. The ones who have been forgotten. The ones who need a place to remember that they still matter." Isabel was silent for a long moment. Then she smiled. A huge, genuine smile. "Olivia, that's beautiful. That is exactly what this world needs. And I am going to help you." We started planning that same afternoon. We decided to use Christine's room, which had been empty for years. We would turn it into a meeting space. With comfortable chairs, with books, with tea and coffee. A place where women could come to talk, to vent, to connect. I spoke with Morris, the building manager. I explained my idea. He not only supported it, he offered help from the building. "Mrs. Olivia," he said, "this is exactly what our community needs. There are so many women in this building who live alone, who were pushed aside by their own families. You are giving them a voice. You are giving them dignity." We got the permits. Morris spoke to the tenants' board. Everyone approved. Isabel spread the word, and I began to transform the room. I painted the walls a peach color, a warm, cozy color. I bought new curtains, cream-colored. I put up shelves with books donated by the neighbors. I set up a round table with 6 chairs. I prepared a small tea station with different flavors: jasmine, mint, chamomile, cinnamon, on the wall. I hung a sign I made myself from reclaimed wood. It said simply, "You matter here." The first meeting was on a Saturday afternoon. I didn't know if anyone would come. Isabel brought cookies. Morris helped arrange the chairs. I made tea, and I waited. At 3 o'clock sharp, there was a knock. It was Sarah. a 72-year-old woman who lived on the 4th floor. I had seen her in the elevator, but we had never really talked. "Can I come in?" she asked timidly. "Isabel, I saw the announcement in the lobby." "Of course, Sarah," I said with a smile. "Welcome." Sarah came in slowly, looking at everything with damp eyes. "This place is beautiful," she whispered. "It's been years since I felt welcome anywhere." She sat down, and she started to talk. She told us her son and daughter-in-law had kicked her out of her house 3 years ago, that they had put her in a small, dark apartment, that they visited her once a month, out of obligation, that she felt invisible, disposable. As she was talking, someone knocked again. Tatiana arrived 68 years old. Then another woman came, and another. In total, 6 women that first afternoon. They all had similar stories. Families who had displaced them, children who forgot to call, daughters-in-law or sons-in-law who treated them like a burden, properties they had almost lost, or had lost, stolen dignity, erased identities. We sat in a circle, we shared tea, we shared stories, we shared tears, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel alone in my pain. I wasn't the only one. There were many of us. Sarah was the first one to say it. "Thank you, Olivia," she said, her voice breaking. "Thank you for reminding me that I still exist, that I still have value." The others nodded. Tatiana took my hand. "What you're doing here is more than just a space," she said. "It's a refuge. It's a reminder that we deserve respect no matter our age." I felt something warm in my chest, something I hadn't felt since before the trouble with Rachel. Purpose, meaning, rebirth. The meetings became weekly, every Saturday at 3. The group grew, 10 women, 15, 20. We had to ask for more chairs. Morris got a donation from a furniture store. Isabel started bringing pastries every week. I made different teas. I learned new recipes. The space filled with life, with voices, with laughter, with healing. One afternoon, while I was cleaning up after a meeting, Sarah stayed to help. "Olivia," she asked me while drying the cups, "does your son know what you're doing here?" I shook my head. "No, Edward still calls, but I don't answer." "I'm not ready yet." Sarah nodded. "I understand. But someday, you're going to have to decide whether to forgive him or not. Resentment is heavy, Olivia. It weighs more than any house." I knew she was right. The resentment was heavy. Every day I didn't answer Edward's calls. I felt that weight, but I also felt that forgiving him too soon would be betraying myself. It would be telling him he could hurt me without consequences. "I don't know how to forgive this, Sarah," I admitted. "I don't know how to look at my son without seeing the betrayal, without remembering how they planned to kick me out, how they measured me, as if I were an old piece of furniture to be replaced." Sarah put the dish towel on the table and took my hands. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, Olivia. It means letting go. It means stop carrying the weight of what they did to you. You can forgive and still set boundaries. You can forgive and not go back to being the same with him. Forgiveness is for you, not for him." Her words stayed with me for days. On a Wednesday afternoon, 3 months after everything, Edward showed up again. This time he didn't ring the bell. He was sitting in the hallway, in front of my door, when I got home from the market. "Mom," he said, standing up quickly. "Please, just hear me out. 5 minutes. That's all I ask." I looked at the grocery bags in my hands. I looked at his haggard, thinner face. I looked at his eyes, which no longer had that arrogance. Just exhaustion. Just pain. "All right," I said finally. 5 minutes. I opened the door. We went inside. Edward looked around. He saw the chairs in Christine's room. He saw the books, the sign, the teacups on the table. "What is this?" he asked. "My new project," I replied. "A space for elderly women who have been displaced by their families. For women like me." Edward stared at the sign. "You matter here." His eyes filled with tears. "Mom," he began, his voice trembling, "I've been going to therapy twice a week. I needed to understand how I became so blind. How I could have hurt you like that. And I've learned things. I've learned I was a terrible son. That I prioritized my wife over you, without questioning if it was right. That I let myself be manipulated, because it was easier than facing the truth. He sat on the sofa, that sofa full of history. Rachel and I are divorced, he continued. We signed the papers last week. She never came back after that day. She just sent a lawyer. She got the car. I got the debt. I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt satisfaction. Another part felt pity. Edward didn't look at me. He just kept talking. I've been living in a tiny apartment. I'm working overtime to pay off what we owe. Well, what I owe. Everything was in my name, $120,000. Lost. And you know what the worst part is, Mom? The worst part isn't the money. It's knowing that I lost you over this. That I traded my mother for a woman who only wanted things. Who only wanted status. Who never really loved me. You're wrong about that, I said finally. The worst part isn't that you lost me. The worst part is that you were willing to. That's the difference. Edward looked up. You're right, he whispered, and I don't know if you can ever forgive me. But I need you to know. I'm trying to be better. To be the son you deserved. To be the man Dad wanted me to be. He showed me something on his phone. A picture. It was him in a community center serving food. I started volunteering, he explained, at a kitchen for elderly folks, 3 times a week. I'm not doing it so you'll forgive me. I'm doing it because I need to understand. I need to see elderly people as whole human beings, not as burdens like I saw you. I sat across from him. The 5 minutes were long gone, but I didn't stop him. Edward, I said slowly, I appreciate that you're trying to change. But change isn't proven in weeks, it's proven in years, in consistent actions. I can't forgive you yet. Not because I don't want to, but because I need to see that this change is real. That it's not just fear of being alone, that it's not just temporary guilt. He nodded. I understand, Mom, and I won't pressure you. I just wanted you to know that I haven't given up, that I'm going to keep trying to be better, and that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. He stood up to leave. Before he got to the door, I stopped him. Edward. He turned. You can come on Saturdays. To the meetings. Not as my son, as a volunteer. We can use the help, serving tea, moving chairs, listening. His eyes lit up. Really, Mom? I nodded. Really, but on one condition. None of these women can know you're my son. You're just Edward, a volunteer, nothing more. I accept, he said quickly. I accept any condition. I just want to help. I want to learn. The first Saturday, Edward came as a volunteer. He arrived 30 minutes early. He knocked softly. He brought a box of freshly baked cookies. I made them myself, he said shyly. I don't know if they're any good, but I wanted to contribute. I tried one. They were good. Not perfect, but made with effort, with intention. They're fine, I said. You can put them on the table. When the women started to arrive, Edward greeted them with a warmth I hadn't seen in him in years. Good afternoon, ma'am, he'd say. Let me help you with your bag. Please sit wherever you're comfortable. Can I get you some tea? The women looked at him surprised. A young, polite, attentive man. A rare sight these days. Sarah looked at me and raised an eyebrow. Who is he? She whispered. A volunteer, I replied. Just that. During the meeting, Edward sat in a chair at the back. He didn't speak. He just listened. He listened to Tatiana talk about how her daughter put her in a nursing home without asking. He listened to Sarah talk about how her son sold her jewelry without permission. He listened to another woman, Elvira, talk about how her family forgot her birthday for the 3rd year in a row. I saw Edward's eyes fill with tears. I saw him clench his fists. I saw him breathing deeply to keep from crying. At the end of the meeting, he helped wash the cups, put away the chairs, sweep the floor. He worked in silence, his head down. When everyone had left, he stood in the middle of the room. "Mom," he said in a broken voice, "I did that. I was that son, the one who forgets, the one who displaces, the one who treats his mother like she's invisible." I nodded. "Yes, Edward, you were. But now you know, and knowing is the first step to changing." The weeks went by. Edward came every Saturday, without fail. Rain or shine, he arrived early, he left late. The women started to grow fond of him. "Oh, Edward," Sarah would say, "you're such an attentive young man. Your mother must be very proud of you." Edward would glance at me. I didn't say anything. I just smiled. One day Tatiana asked him directly, "Edward, do you have a family? What's your relationship with your mom?" And now I'm trying to learn how to be better for her and for all women like her. The women looked at each other. There was a respectful silence. Then Sarah spoke. "The fact that you recognize it is already a lot, Edward. Most sons never do. They never admit they hurt anyone, that they forgot, that they displaced. You're here. You're learning. That says a lot about your character." Edward discreetly wiped away a tear. "Thank you, Mrs. Sarah. That means a lot." One Saturday, 2 months after Edward started coming, Isabel arrived with news. "Olivia, there's a reporter from the local paper who wants to do a story on what you're doing here. About this space. He says it's inspiring. That more communities should have something like this." I felt nervous. "I don't know, Isabel. I didn't do this to be in the paper. I did it because it was necessary." Isabel took my hands. "That's exactly why you have to do it. Because other women need to know that this exists, that they're not alone, that there are places where they matter." I agreed to the interview. The reporter Luis arrived on a Wednesday. He brought a small camera and a notepad. He asked me questions about how the idea started, why it was important, about my personal story. I told him everything: the house, the fake deed, the attempt to displace me, my decision to turn my pain into purpose. Luis wrote quickly, nodding. "Mrs. Olivia," he said at the end, "your story is going to resonate with thousands of people, especially with elderly women who are living through the same thing. You are giving them a voice." The article came out 2 weeks later. It took up a whole page. There were photos of the space, of the women in a circle, of the teacups, of me, smiling, next to the sign that said, "You matter here." The headline was, "The house they couldn't steal is now a refuge for others." I read the article 3 times. Luis had captured everything: the pain, the fight, the rebirth. At the end of the article, there was a quote from me that I didn't remember saying, but it was completely true. "Elderly women are not old furniture to be discarded. We are living libraries that deserve respect." After the article came out, everything changed. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. Women from all over the city called, asking if they could come, if they could be part of the group. Morris had to get us a bigger room in the building. The meetings grew, 30 women, 40, 50. We had to organize into 2 groups, one on Saturdays, one on Wednesdays. Edward kept coming, now to both meetings. He kept serving tea, kept listening, kept learning. One afternoon after a meeting, Sarah approached me. "Olivia, I need to tell you something. I know who Edward is. I saw the photo in the article, the one on your shelf. He's your son." I was silent. Sarah continued, "I didn't say anything, because I respect your decision to keep it private. But I need you to know something. That young man has changed. I see it in his eyes, in how he treats every woman who comes in here, with reverence, with respect. as if every one of us was his own mother. You can't fake that, Olivia. That's real. That night, after everyone left, Edward stayed to help me clean. We worked in silence for a while. Then, as he was drying the cups, he spoke. "Mom, I know you still haven't forgiven me, and I get it. But I need you to know, these last few months have been the most important of my life. I've learned more here, listening to these women, than in all my adult years. I've learned about dignity, about respect, about the value of people, no matter their age." I looked at him. I really looked at him. He wasn't the arrogant man who had measured my living room. He wasn't the blind son who had chosen his wife over his mother. He was someone different, someone who was growing, someone who was healing. "Edward," I said slowly, "forgiveness doesn't happen all at once. It comes in layers, like paint, one coat at a time. And I think I'm starting to paint you again, to see you again." His eyes filled with tears. "That's more than I deserve, Mom. I swear." I shook my head. "It's not more than you deserve. It's exactly what you deserve, for doing the work. For showing me with actions, not just words, that you changed." We hugged. For the first time in almost a year. A long, tight hug, filled with everything we couldn't say with words. Pain, forgiveness, hope, love. 3 months later, at a Saturday meeting, something unexpected happened. A new woman arrived, younger than the others, maybe 50. She walked in with her head down, her eyes red. Isabel greeted her and led her to a chair. When the woman looked up, Edward turned pale. It was Rachel. The silence was immediate. All the women looked from Edward to Rachel. I was frozen. Rachel's face was haggard, thinner, no makeup, none of that arrogance that used to define her. She started, her voice trembling. "I saw the article in the paper. I read about this place, about what you do here. And I thought maybe I needed to be here too." Sarah spoke first. "Everyone is welcome here," she said firmly. "No matter your past, no matter your mistakes. This is a healing space." Rachel nodded. "Thank you. I don't know if I have the right to be here, but I've lost everything. My marriage, my house, my dignity. And I realized that I was the villain in someone else's story. In Olivia's story." All eyes turned to me. The room was so quiet, I could hear my own heart. Rachel looked at me directly. "Mrs. Olivia," she said, "I don't expect your forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know that I understand now. I understand what I did to you. I understand the pain I caused. And if I could go back in time, I would do everything differently." I stood there, looking at her. This woman who had tried to steal my house, my dignity, my place in the world. This woman who had manipulated my son, who had treated me like a burden. Now she was in front of me, broken, humble, human. Rachel sat in the only empty chair at the far end of the circle. Edward didn't move from his spot by the window. The other women waited, waiting for my reaction, my word, my decision, because this was my space, my refuge, and now the woman who had tried to destroy it was asking to come in. I took a deep breath. I looked at Sarah. She nodded, almost imperceptibly, as if giving me permission to feel whatever I needed to feel. "Rachel," I said finally, my voice firmer than I expected. "This space exists because women like me were displaced, forgotten, treated as if we didn't matter. You were part of that. You tried to erase me from my own home." And Rachel bowed her head. "I know," she whispered. "I know, and I'm ashamed every day." I held up my hand. "I'm not finished." She looked up, her eyes full of tears. "But I also know," I continued, that pain changes people, that losing everything teaches you what's really important. And if you are here, if you truly came to heal and not to manipulate, then you have to understand something. There is no room for ego here, no room for falsehood. There is only truth, honest pain, and the real work of becoming better. Rachel nodded. I understand, and I accept those conditions. I need a place to learn, to understand what made me the person I was. Sarah spoke up. We've all been the villain at some point in our lives, she said, looking at Rachel. We've all hurt someone. The difference is in recognizing it, in doing the work to change. If you come with humility, you are welcome. Rachel wiped her tears. Thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance. Edward was still motionless. I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he clenched his jaw. That afternoon, Rachel just listened. She didn't talk about her story. She didn't play the victim. She just listened to the other women. Listened to Tatiana talk about her daughter. Listened to Elvira talk about her family. She listened, attentively, with red eyes, nodding once in a while. When the meeting was over, she helped pick up the cups without being asked. She worked in silence, next to Edward. They didn't speak. They didn't even look at each other. They just worked. Before leaving, Rachel approached me. Mrs. Olivia, can I come back next week? I looked into her eyes, searching for falsehood, searching for manipulation, but I only saw exhaustion. I only saw a broken woman trying to find a path back to humanity. You can come back, I said, but on one condition. You have to be completely honest. About everything. About why you did what you did. About who you were and who you want to be. No more half-truths. I accept, she said. I promise. Rachel came back the next Saturday, and the next, and the next. For the first few weeks, she only listened. But in the 5th week, Sarah asked her to share. Rachel, she said gently, are you ready to talk, to tell us your story? Rachel looked around the circle. All the women were waiting. She took a deep breath. Okay, she said. I'll tell you who I was and why I got to that point. She started slowly. I grew up in a poor family, she said. My father left us when I was 8. My mother worked 3 jobs to keep us afloat. I grew up watching how the world treated women with no resources, how they were ignored, how they were stepped on. And I swore I wouldn't be like that I would have my own house, security, stability. But that desire, it turned into an obsession, into greed. I stopped seeing people. I only saw what they could give me. The women listened in silence. Rachel continued. When I met Edward, I saw an opportunity. A good man, with a mother who had a beautiful house. And instead of building my own life, I decided to take someone else's. I decided to displace Olivia. I convinced Edward that she was in the way, that we deserved that space. I manipulated. I lied. I became the person I hated. I became my father, someone who takes without giving, who uses without gratitude. Her voice broke. And when I lost everything, when the deed turned out to be fake, when Edward left me, I thought it was the end, that I had hit rock bottom. But then I saw the article about Olivia, about this space. And I realized my punishment wasn't losing the house. It was realizing that I had tried to destroy a woman who deserved all my respect. A woman who had worked for what was hers. Who had raised her family alone. Who had built something real, while I just wanted to steal something easy. Sarah passed her a tissue. Rachel wiped her eyes. Now I live in a tiny room, she continued. I work cleaning houses. I can barely afford to eat. But for the first time in my life, I'm building something of my own, with my own hands, with my own effort. And it hurts. It hurts so much. But it's honest. It's real. And I need to learn from women like you. Women who were displaced and survived. Women who found purpose after the pain. Tatiana spoke. The first step is recognizing the harm, Rachel. And you just did that. That takes courage. Now comes the hard work, staying on this path, being consistent, proving to yourself that the change is real. Rachel nodded. I'm willing. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Isabel added something. And you also have to forgive yourself, eventually. Not now, not yet, but someday. Because carrying that guilt forever won't help anyone, not even yourself. After that meeting, something changed in the group dynamic. Rachel started to participate more. She shared what she was learning in therapy, because she had started going too. She talked about the patterns she'd identified in her behavior, about her fear of poverty that had turned her into someone cruel, about her need for external validation that had made her seek status over substance. The women listened. They advised her. They gave her perspective. Edward and Rachel eventually started talking. Short conversations at first, about the tea, about the weather, about the cookies he brought. Nothing deep, but civil, respectful. One day after a meeting, Rachel approached Edward. "Can I talk to you, Mary, for a moment?" she asked. Edward looked at me. I nodded. They went out into the hallway. They talked for 20 minutes. When they came back, both had red eyes, but calm expressions. Edward told me later what they talked about. "Rachel apologized to me," he said. "She told me she used me, that she never really loved me, that she loved the idea of what I represented. Security, stability, a family she never had, and that she's sorry. Sorry she turned me into someone I wasn't. Someone who would betray his own mother." I asked him how he felt about that. "Liberated," he answered. "Finally, liberated. Because now I know that none of what happened was real love. And that lets me let it go. Let go of the idea of what I thought we had." 6 months passed. The group kept growing. Rachel kept coming, kept working, kept being honest. One Saturday, after the meeting, she approached me with a proposal. "Mrs. Olivia," she started nervously, "I've been thinking. I clean houses now, and a lot of the ladies in the group, they need help with that. Their families don't help them. They're alone. What would you think if I offered my services for free, once a month, to the women in the group, as a way of giving back, as a way of serving?" I looked at her, surprised. "Rachel, that would be a lot of extra work for you. You already work 6 days a week." She nodded. "I know. But I need to do this. I need to serve the people who represent what I tried to destroy. Not out of guilt, but out of purpose. To build something good from something bad." I agreed, and so it began. Rachel started cleaning the houses of the elderly women in the group, one every Saturday after the meetings. She did it for free, with dedication, with respect. The women were skeptical at first, but over time, they saw it was genuine, that there was no hidden agenda, just service, just redemption. Sarah was the first to say it out loud. "Rachel is really changing," she told me one day, over coffee. "I see it in her eyes, in how she gets on her knees to clean the corners of my house that I can't reach anymore, and in how she asks me if I'm okay, if I need anything. That's not the same woman who came here 6 months ago, broken and desperate. This is a woman who is being reborn." I saw it too, and slowly, very slowly, something in me was starting to change. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. Not completely. But it was something close. It was acknowledgement that people can transform, that pain can be a teacher, that even those who hurt us deeply can learn, can grow, can become something better. 3 years passed. 3 years. Since that day Morris knocked on my door with the truth in his hands. 3 years since my life split in two, before and after, pain and rebirth, loss and purpose. The space I had created in my house became something bigger than I ever imagined. It wasn't just a room with chairs and tea anymore. It was a movement. Other communities in the city had started their own groups, inspired by the article, inspired by our story. Edward had become the official coordinator of the program. He quit his corporate job, and now he dedicates himself full-time to this, to helping elderly women, to creating safe spaces in different neighborhoods, to training other volunteers, to being the son he always should have been, not just for me, but for all the forgotten mothers of the world. I'd watch him work, and I'd feel something I hadn't felt in years. Pride. Genuine pride. Rachel was still here too. She didn't clean houses anymore. She had studied to become a social worker. She worked at a shelter for victims of domestic violence. She still came to our meetings every Saturday. Still honest, still growing. One afternoon, 3 years after everything, she and I finally had the conversation we had been avoiding, the real one. We were alone in the kitchen, preparing tea for the meeting. "Mrs. Olivia," she said suddenly, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." I looked at her. "Go ahead." She took a deep breath. "Have you forgiven me? Have you really forgiven me? Or do you just tolerate me because I'm part of the group?" I was quiet for a long moment, thinking, searching for the truth in my own heart. At first, I admitted I just tolerated you. You'd come here, and I'd see the woman who tried to steal my house, my dignity, my place in the world. Every time I looked at you, I remembered that day. The keys in your hand, the tape measure falling. Your face, when Morris told the truth. Rachel nodded, tears in her eyes. "I understand. I'm still that person. In your memory." I held up my hand. "Wait. Let me finish. You were that person, but you're not anymore. I've watched your transformation. I haven't just heard it. I've seen it. I've seen you on your knees, cleaning houses for women who could have been me. I've seen you cry when Sarah tells her story. I've seen you serve you without expecting anything in return. And you can't fake that, not for 3 years. That's real. That's genuine change." Rachel covered her face with her hands. "I don't deserve your forgiveness. I don't deserve your kindness." I walked over to her. I pulled her hands away from her face. I looked at her directly. "Rachel, forgiveness isn't something you deserve. It's something that's given, and I give it to you. Not because I forgot what you did, but because I saw who you became. And that woman deserves a second chance." We hugged. A long hug, full of years of pain, transformed into healing. That afternoon during the meeting, something special happened. Sarah announced she was moving in with her son, but not out of obligation. Her son had come to one of our meetings months ago. He had listened, he had learned, and he had apologized. Now, he wanted his mother to live with him, not as a burden, but as the respected matriarch. She always should have been. We all applauded. Sarah cried with happiness. "Olivia," she told me, "this wouldn't have happened without you. Without this space. My son never would have understood the damage he'd caused." Tatiana had news too. Her daughter had started therapy. After Tatiana shared the newspaper article with her, They had started to rebuild their relationship. Slowly, with honesty, with clear boundaries, but with love. One story after another, families healing, women reclaiming their dignity, all because, one day, I decided not to disappear. I decided to fight. I decided to turn my pain into something useful. At the end of the meeting, Edward took the floor. "I wanted to share something," he said. 3 years ago, I was the worst kind of son. The kind who forgets, the kind who displaces, the kind who prioritizes everything except the person who raised him. My mother could have closed the door on me forever. She could have erased me from her life like I tried to erase her from mine. But she didn't. She gave me the chance to learn, to grow, to be better. And I want all of you to know that if you have children who have hurt you, there is hope. If those children are willing to do the work, to be humble, to serve, there is hope. The women listened to him spellbound. Some were crying. Edward continued, "But I also want to tell you that you are under no obligation to forgive. You have no obligation to give second chances. Forgiveness is a gift, not a requirement. And if you decide not to forgive, that's okay too. Because you have already given enough. You have already sacrificed enough. Now it's your turn to live in peace, with or without the people who hurt you." That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat by the window, the same window where Rachel had planned to put her magazine plants, the same window where I had looked out at the park for 28 years. The city glittered under the night lights. Everything was quiet. I thought about my husband, about his letters, about his words. This house isn't just walls. It's your fortress. He was right. He was always right. I took out one of his letters, the last one he wrote, the one I had never dared to read all the way through because it hurt too much. I opened it with trembling hands. "My dearest Olivia," it said, "by the time you read this, I'll be gone, and you'll be facing the world alone. But I want you to know something. You are the strongest woman I have ever known, stronger than any storm, stronger than any loss. And if, someday, someone tries to make you small, remember this. You are not small. You are immense. You are a library of wisdom, a mountain of strength, an ocean of love. Don't let anyone reduce you, ever." Tears streamed down my face. I kept reading. "And if you manage to turn your pain into something beautiful, if you manage to take what hurts you and transform it into something that heals others, then you will have understood the secret to life. Legacy isn't a monument. It's a map. It's the path you leave for others to follow, so others can find their own strength, their own purpose, their own voice." I folded the letter carefully. I held it to my heart. My husband had seen my future before I had lived it. He had known I would find the way, that I would transform the pain, that I would leave a map. I stood up and walked through my house, the one I bought with my parents' money, the one I defended with my truth, the one I turned into a refuge. Every corner had a history, but it wasn't just a history of pain anymore. It was a history of rebirth. I passed the room that was now our meeting space. I saw the empty chairs waiting for the next Saturday. I saw the sign I had made myself. "You matter here." Those 3 words, had changed so many lives, including my own. Because by creating a space where other women mattered, I had remembered that I mattered too, that my life had value, that my story deserved to be told, that my existence was non-negotiable. I went out onto the balcony. The cool night air brushed my face. I looked up at the stars, the same stars. My husband and I used to watch together, the same stars that had witnessed my pain, my struggle, my victory. I closed my eyes and whispered, "I did it, my love. I took the pain and I turned it into purpose. I took the betrayal and I turned it into a lesson. I took the house they tried to steal and I turned it into a home for hundreds of women. I did it." The wind whispered back, as if he was answering me from somewhere far away. I opened my eyes. The city was still shining, life was still moving, and I was still here, standing. Strong, whole. I wasn't just Olivia, the woman who almost lost her house. I was Olivia, the woman who turned her fortress into a refuge, the woman who taught that forgiveness is powerful, but so are boundaries, the woman who proved that elderly women are not invisible. We are essential. I went back inside. I got ready for bed. But first, I wrote something in my journal, something I wanted to remember, something I wanted to leave for Christine, for Edward, for all the women who would come after. I wrote, "Justice doesn't shout, it arrives. And when it arrives, it transforms everything. It doesn't just punish, it heals. It doesn't just destroy, it rebuilds. And the greatest legacy we can leave is not a property. It's a map to dignity, to respect, to remembering that we always, always matter." I closed the journal. I turned off the light. I got into my bed, in my house, in my fortress, and for the first time in years, I slept soundly. Without fear, without pain, just peace. A peace I had earned, a peace I deserved, an eternal peace.